Hello, welcome to Why China Matters to Heartland, a special program brought to you by the U.S. Heartland China Association, also known as USHCA. My name is Min Fin. I am the Executive Director of USHCA. I will be your facilitator today. For those who are not familiar with our organization, we are a 501c3 bipartisan nonprofit committed to foster and support a positive, productive, and mutually beneficial relationship between the US and China by creating more channels of collaboration and opportunities for economic growth in the American Heartland region, the 20 plus states between the Great Lakes and the Gulf. Over a year ago, we were approached by, actually before I get started, I want to do a quick housekeeping that throughout the event, please enter your questions through Q&A. And at the end, before you leave, if you can share your feedback, will be wonderful. After the public program concludes, our members and guests invited to a member forum and for smaller, more intimate discussion. And if our panelists are available, please also join us here. You just need to stay in and then we'll move into that segment. And so now a little bit background about this project. About a year ago, one of the Heartland local leaders reached out to us and asked for better data on his state's connection with China. That launched us into this Why China Matters for Heartland project. Over a year in the making, this project actually took us literally virtually across the Heartland to survey the state of culture, education, and business exchanges that each of the states has with China. And today we are pleased to make this project report publicly available. And for those of you who register, you'll be among the first to receive the digital copy. But even more important than the data, through the outreach, we learn about genuine connections, deep friendship, and tangible benefits and throughout the Heartland region. And we also learned about many perspectives, insight from across the country, and you will hear from some of them today. And before we actually get started, I would like to welcome our Chairman, CEO, U.S. Heartland China Association's leader, former Governor of Missouri, Bob Holden, to give his opening remarks. And Governor Holden, when you're ready.
Well, thank you to everyone joining us on this first event in 2022. I could not be more proud of how the Heartland community has come together to make this project a reality. Last fall, I was honored to be inducted into the Missouri Public Affairs Hall of Fame. When I reflected on my long career as a public servant, one of my proudest moments was in 2004, when I opened Missouri's first trade office in China as the governor of Missouri and chairman of the Midwest Governors Association. As governor, I saw the abundant economic opportunities that China presented for my state and the Heartland community at large. Later, as a professor, I talked about how we build connection, build relationships, and how we work to have a shared future. One comment a student made to me has stayed with me my entire life since. I'd always ask the students to make any comments after I turned in their grades and before we left. This young lady got up and she said, "Governor, I will not go back to China the same person that came to America." Now, what better foreign policy could we have as a nation than that? But this is why I have devoted myself to promoting exchanges between the United States and China and the rest of the global community. At that juncture, China was the greatest opportunity we had, and I wanted our Heartland community to be the first in line to reap the benefits of global connections. Fast forward to today, I am saddened to see that China has become a liability in many circles. Organizations like USHCA that promote understanding and engagement with China are even attacked as pro-China are working for the Chinese government is unfounded. To be clear, USHCA believes in the importance of engagement with China to advance the interest of the United States with China and the rest of the world. We focus on people-to-people exchanges to leave the foreign policy debate to our governments. Even as the United States and China shift toward strategic competition, USHCA believes that the interest of the American people are best served by thoughtful exploration of opportunities with the Chinese people, rather than a wholesale dismissal ties. We remain committed to promoting productive and mentally beneficial relationships between the American heartland and the people around the world. We live in a time of great global challenges. It is my conviction that the United States-China partnership and collaboration are absolutely critical if our planet is to successfully address the most significant global challenges of our time. We should acknowledge that neither culture or country is perfect, while working harder to better understand each other. We must find areas of mutual benefit where we can collaborate while respecting our differences and holding both cultures to the highest ideals that our respective histories have been built on. As a longtime public servant and a former politician, I appreciate the importance of work our politicians do, but also understand their short-term limitations. They don't always have the luxury to think strategically for the long-term interest of their constituents or for the world at large. It falls upon the shoulders of informed citizens and motivated NGOs like USHCA to ensure that what is important for the long-term peace and prosperity of our country and our world, they must be actively involved and we must work with them. We've got to maintain a healthy and stable US-China relationship to prevail as we move forward in developing public policy programs that are mutually beneficial to all. At this critical juncture in the United States-China relations, we need more bridges of peace. In the American heartland, where I was born and raised, our industries and our people are the backbone of our country. Our region is the foundation of our agricultural manufacturing sectors, and many of our greatest leaders and academics have their roots in our cities and our towns and our states. And towns across the Great Lake truly represent all of us. Here, we believe that not all bridges are built of concrete and steel. Equally important, bridges are built on friendship, cultural competition and communication, and commercial cooperation. Where those bridges exist, communities flourish. This program and our report, Why China Matters to the Heartland, helps us put these things in perspective. Now I'd like to turn back to Min so she can introduce the rest of our program, and looking forward to a wonderful discussion among all of us. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Governor Holden, and thank you for your wonderful remarks. And we will now move into the panels, and we have lined up 7 wonderful speakers coming from different parts of the country, from different perspectives. And to help us get started first is actually from Denise Thompson, CEO of World Trade Center, Arkansas, who will share with us why China matters to Arkansas. Instead of going through all the data, again, you're looking at one of the state fact sheets in this report, and she's going to talk from her experiences. So let me stop sharing the slide and turn the podium to Denise. Welcome, Denise. Oh, Denise, you're muted.
Sorry about that. I'm so used to being quiet back here. Thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate it. And I really appreciate the opportunity to talk about Arkansas and China and the relationship. We have had a very robust trading with China, in that we have great partnerships, we have strategic relationships with these. Exports for the state of Arkansas, the last we checked, was about 6.2 billion. And of that 6.2 billion, 1 billion of it is exports to China, whether it be with export services or whether it be with a product. We have found that we've created several jobs and several companies that have direct foreign investment with the state. And within that, that has been a moving target a little bit in a positive way, is it gives us a greater opportunity to look at new opportunities for foreign direct investment with China. We look at, because we have so much retail, with Walmart being here, the retail really does have robust trade with China. We do recognize that a lot of the exports that we have are all around farming and ag within the state. Farming and agriculture is our largest export. We are one of the largest, if not the largest, exporter of rice and grain, not just to China, but globally. We're also the largest protein producer within the state. Again, not just with China, but globally, with Tyson chicken here. The jobs that we have are a little over 5,000 that come from the China market, that really have help build the economy within the state. The biggest thing that I think is really interesting is the educational capacity. We have several colleges here that are land grant institutions. And within that, those land grant institutions, 10% of those students are from China, which is a huge impact on the economic development for those institutions, as well as giving the students a far more robust education and educational opportunities. These are the things that we look for when we're working with building content and curriculum. As you know, statistically, when you have a diverse classroom, you have a more robust education, and the students tend to find new ways to develop relationships. We feel that that educational component is really the key to help building strategic relationships with the China market and helping us grow and find new opportunities. So, I think about the student engagement with the interns that we've had here with China that have been able to help us do wonderful things. We've sent interns to China. We had one student that worked with a law firm for a summer, and she came back and has a really good job working for her. She actually started her own practice, and she specializes in international business, in part with China, primarily because of that relationship. So we look at those types of things and how they really began to engage. From a humanitarian standpoint, the thing that I think is the most important to us is not always the business and how we grow and expand our economy within the state, but when we look at the opportunities with job creation and people working together collaboratively in a work environment, when you look at student engagement and the student's ability to kind of go back home and tell a story or come here and tell us a story, the humanitarian aspect of it is something that I think is really important. We often do many of the trade missions that we have done globally and with China specifically. The big portions around that is always food, culture, and fun. The fellowship aspect of it is just as important as the business aspect. And we have found that with the engagement that we have with China, with that close to $1 billion in trade, we really have a great opportunity to expand that, not just through grains, but also in meat production, manufacturing production, as well as partnerships where we do finished goods here or we do finished goods there that are imported back into the US. So there's really a lot of opportunity and a lot of goodwill that happens when we have these good foreign policies and when we have relationships. Governor Holden and I were speaking some time ago, and we talked a little bit about foreign policy. And really and truly, we don't have an impact on that policy immediately. The policies are done, they're created, and sometimes we just kind of have to live with them. But the truth of the matter is, through our activities and through us developing relationship and strategic partnerships, we can show that the opportunity with China is even greater than we even anticipated. So from that, we feel that these things really help the economy on both sides of the pond. We feel that those relationships are something that are just paramount with what we do. My personal perspective is that we do have to find a positive way to work with China to continue to build our state's economy, but also build the economy of the country and continue to expand trade with China. We can't not do business with them, but we certainly have to find more creative ways to do what we do and do it better. Thank you.
Great. Thank you, Denise. Later, again, we welcome everyone to download the report at the end of the event. Again, as the registrants, you'll be among the first to receive the copy. Take a closer look at the Arkansas. We learned a lot from the connection with the community there. Thank you, Denise. And next, we would like to welcome President of U.S.-China Business Council, Ambassador Craig Allen, to share his perspective, especially for some of the Heartland states. And we'll have his slides ready. Craig?
Great, terrific. Thank you, Min. Always a pleasure to be on a panel with Governor Holden. And I want to thank the U.S.-China Heartland Association very much. Pleasure to follow Denise Thomas. I hope that I am only half as eloquent as she is. I do have a couple of slides that go through U.S. export trends over the last year or two. And generally, they're very positive with the Heartland states doing particularly well. So if I may, the headline figures for 2020 are $123 billion worth of exports, which was up 17% over the year before, 54 billion in services exports. As Denise noted, education would be high up there, and a little bit less than 1 million jobs supported over the course of at the end of 2020. The 2021 figures are out partially, but not in full. So we have figures up to November, and I'll refer to those figures to give a view of 2021 in a moment. But 2020 was a very good year overall. Exports up 17% in 2021. Our estimate would be about 11%. A lot of this is due to tariff exclusions. So the Chinese have high tariffs of average of 20% on U.S. inbound products, and the Americans have high tariffs, average of 19% on inbound products from China. But the Chinese are giving out many exclusions to these high tariffs, and that is benefiting the Heartland quite handsomely. So China remains our largest overseas market and third behind Mexico and Canada. So overall goods exports to China were hampered in 2020 by the tariff escalations, but overall we did reasonably well. Particularly in commodities, oil and gas, oil seeds and grains, in the equipment area, semiconductors and componentry did very well. So my guesstimate would be that in 2021, we will reach about $135 billion in goods exports in 2021. So another healthy gain this year as well. So let's take a couple of looks, and I chose these couple of states because I think that they're typical of the rural but agricultural producing states. Kansas was very interesting with a huge rebound in 2020. And I would expect an increase of maybe 30% in 2021 over 2020. So Kansas's agricultural exports, which make up 3/4 of Kansas's total exports to China have rebounded nicely and continue to rebound in 2021. Let's look at another case. Iowa was hit badly in 2018 and 2019 by the tariffs, but a huge increase in 2020 as a result of those tariff exclusions that I mentioned before. As you'll see, 2/3 of Iowa's exports are oilseeds and grain, with another huge contribution by meat products, and then construction equipment after that. So I would expect that Iowa had a fantastic year in 2021, and that agricultural prices in Iowa have benefited, are higher as a result of that. So when you look at overall goods exports to the US, you see that the Heartland has done very, very well, 2019 to 2020. And I would expect that the trend lines, while the data is not finished, is not out yet, that the trend line would be very similar in 2021. And so the export revival has been largely led by agriculture and agricultural machinery, the agribusiness, as demonstrated here. So before going on to that, let me note that I'm very optimistic about 2021. According to the Department of Agriculture, for the first 11 months of the year, US exports in agriculture were up 35%. So ethanol up over 1,000% in 2021 over 2020. Grain and feed, 172%, 2021 over 2020. Grains and feeds, 172%. Planting seeds, 52%. Meat and livestock, 36%. Dairy, 35%. Horticulture, 33%. And forest products, 33%. So these figures and the agricultural boom will certainly continue in 2021. And I think, I hope, is helping with pricing and with the general livelihood of the Midwestern part of the United States, of the Heartland. So let's look at services. Denise mentioned the benefits of education. And I think that when we define services exports, education is a very important component of this. Travel is another important component. And then royalties on intellectual property would be the third component on this. And services education has slowed here. The latest data that we have, services data, is 2 years behind the current calendar. So this is 2019 data. But I know in 2020 and in 2021, the trend is down. And that is largely because of COVID, largely because of the difficulty of Chinese students traveling to your universities. So I think that this bears reflection, and it's something that we should be careful about. So when you look at the services data on a national perspective, you'll see, I would say, pretty disturbing trends. And again, I wouldn't read too much into this. Once COVID is over and students are available, are free to travel back to American universities, I think you'll see a big recovery here. But 2018 to 2019, 2019 to 2020, and I'm afraid 2020 to 2021, there's a lot of red on this map for services exports to the United States. So when we look at jobs, we see a pretty mixed picture. I would say that the biggest gainers over the 2020 and 2021 would be in the Heartland. 100 districts saw jobs supported by exports growing, but we saw many districts with seeing decreases. So, and basically it's pretty easy to follow the bouncing ball. Oil and gas up, agriculture products up, transportation products down. And that would reflect in the overall job numbers for associated with US exports to China. So this is my last slide. And I think that it broadly reflects where the job growth and the job declines are. I would note this data is a little bit old because of the delay in the reporting of services data. But I think if we had 2021, there'd be more blue on this map that would reflect over more of the heartland. But generally speaking, this is where I think statistically we are. So let me say in conclusion that a lot of the export growth has been as a result of Chinese tariff exclusions. We must not take that for granted. This is a product of bilateral negotiations. And I encourage you to talk to your congressmen or congresswomen, your representative, your senators, to demand a continuation of exclusions, tariff exclusions on both sides. This should be regulated. Also, the phase one agreement has been very beneficial for the heartland, and you should be talking to your congressional representatives about that. And ultimately, the heartland is hurt by tariffs more than anybody. That's been the case since the banning of agricultural exports to Russia 30 years ago. It's equally the case today. To the extent that we're able to move beyond tariffs as an instrument of economic coercion by the United States, the better off the farmland will be. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Craig, for your wonderful data insights. And there are a lot of questions. I would say let's hold for the Q&A segment, but feel free to take a look at the questions coming up and then prepare for any kind of response. So maybe we'll invite Amy from Ohio, and Amy's slides are going to be queued up. And when you're ready, Amy, please.
Sure, thank you, Ming. Firstly, thank you for this great event. It's a great pleasure to be here. Thank you for Governor Holden and Ming and your whole team's great efforts to putting this together. We definitely agree China matters. It matters to Ohio, it matters to the whole United States. So here today, let me briefly share what Ohio did to attract Chinese investment in Ohio, specifically on the FDI, jobs creation side. Before doing that, a quick introduction about myself. So I'm leading all the Asian business development effort for Jobs Ohio. Jobs Ohio is a private nonprofit economic development corporation. So in Asia, we have 5 different countries. China is a very important country for Ohio. This year, we know there are a lot of noise between China and the US, which Governor Holden mentioned a little bit. I'm doing it in a very different, aggressive approach because I certainly agree China matters. So this year, I'm actually in the China operation. We are going to double down our Chinese headcount located in China from 2 staff to 4 staff. So we are going to initiate, a lot of great, activities to try to attract more jobs and more investment, more collaborations from China to Ohio and to the heartland. A little bit of background of the overall stats about China and Ohio. So overall, we have 50 countries investment in Ohio, and specifically in China, more than 7,000 workers are employed in Ohio by Chinese companies. This is from the FDI side, and I know a lot of the guest speaker already mentioned about exports and education side. We are also doing very great in education and in export side. In terms of the exporting jobs, there are more than 30,000 Ohio jobs that are supported by Ohio exports to China. And in terms of education side, actually, there are more than 14,000 Chinese students starting in Ohio. So, looking back, we already have a lot of great activities between China and Ohio. That is why China really matters. It matters to Ohio and it matters to the Heartland. So here is a brief background about, the overall FDI investment from global companies to Ohio. Ohio's key focus are G7 countries plus China. Specifically, I want to highlight this slide because I think China is very, very important. So I want to emphasize it again and again that China is important to Ohio. Currently, as I already shared, a lot of jobs are created from Chinese companies. Now we have 7,000 jobs. I think we're definitely expecting more and more growth this year and in the future. This is a brief overview of some of the significant investment. We have overall more than 50 companies from China investing in Ohio. And this is one of the highlights about the significant 9 investment, including Fuja Automotive Class, which is the largest Chinese investment from in Ohio. So for Fuja investment, Fuja invested more than 700 million USD in Ohio. The headquarters is in Dayton, Ohio. And this investment actually created more than 2,000 jobs in the Ohio region. Next, I'm going to briefly share about the whole Ohio and the Fuja story. So Fuja's project came to Ohio in 2015. It started as an 800 job project. It grew multiple times over the years. So from the 800 jobs in 2015, it grew to 1,500 jobs, 2 and 3 years after. Now it actually grew again, and now we have over 2,000 jobs created by Fuja in Ohio. This is very significant, and Fuja and Ohio have great relationship. From Ohio side, we gave great support from incentive perspective, from workforce perspective, and from every angle about how we can become a true partner to support Fuja's growth in Ohio. This is a slide, detailing out a little bit about, the Fuja and Ohio journey. So in 2013, Fuja started to think about potential investment in the US. In 2014, actually the team came to visit. At 2013, later 2013, the team came to visit. In later 2014, chairman decided to actually invest in Ohio. So the whole journey actually only took about 1 year for such a significant investment. From our side, the partnership has been truly amazing. We actually participate in all kinds of events related to Fuja. There are a few pictures, highlighting Fuja and Ohio and Jobs Ohio co-hosting several events together. Each event actually attracts sometimes more than 1,000 attendees because so many people are interested in Fuja's journey in Ohio. The governor and the lieutenant governor gave great support about Fuja's project. Everybody probably are aware that we actually have a documentary, American Factory, detailing all the journeys about Fuja's investment. This documentary actually got the Oscar award in 2020. So it has been a great, journey together with Fuja. It's not only one side, right? Ohio supported a lot to Fuja's success in Ohio. At the same time, Fuja actually contributed so much to the Ohio communities as well. For example, during the pandemic time, when we are so in demand, in need of the critical PPE, Fuja actually donated more than 1 million masks to Ohio. So this is a true example of great partnership that we try to support each other, and it has been a mutual win-win situation for both Fuja and Ohio. This is the final slide that I want to highlight again, that China really matters for Ohio. Chinese investments, exports to China, import from China, every aspect of the Ohio and China relationship actually matters. So along the years, especially prior to the pandemic, we hosted a lot of different events in China and in the US to try to explain to the Chinese investors why Ohio really, want Chinese investment and welcome Chinese investment. And we want to showcase, how Ohio can support your investment, your Chinese investment, in Ohio. We want to be your true partner and help you every step of the way, from your initial investment to your growth in Ohio. We will be there for you and support your growth. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Amy, for sharing the perspective from Ohio. I have to say the documentary American Factory was actually the first documentary produced by the Obama couple and won the Oscar. Highly recommended if you have seen it. I was often reminded by folks who are a lot wiser than me that in the 80s, when Japanese company first came to the United States, they had to learn a lot of lessons. Now with all the Chinese company, private enterprises coming, they are also trying to expand, finding a home in this country as well. So a great story to learn about. And now let's go back to Fanfu. Are you waiting? Are you ready to try again?
Yes. Let me try my PDF instead of PowerPoint.
Great, you can see it. Yeah.
Great, thank you. Sorry about that. So let me start with introducing our organization first. So our department is called Global Trade and Investment for the state of Wisconsin. So we are focusing on 3 areas. The first one is the export. We're trying to help Wisconsin exports. For me, I will be exporting to Asia. And we typically provide 4 services. One is export tech, which is a training session that we use to train the companies to learn how to export better. And second is we have trade reps in 94 countries to support our export efforts. The third is trade ventures. We organize trade ventures to 6 to 7 countries each year. And China is there every year because China is our key focus. And then we also have grants to provide to Wisconsin companies to help them with their export efforts. For example, to help them to go to trade shows, etc. The second function we do is to do the industry development, which means we are trying to develop our driving industries. For example, manufacturing is one of our key industries that we are developing. Another one is the water. We have a water council in Wisconsin, and that's the only one in the US. And we are one of the 4 global water center recognized by the United Nations and the World Bank. So we are very strong in the freshwater area. And other areas are biotech, etc. The third area is the FDI, which we are trying to attract foreign direct investments into Wisconsin in our core industries, like manufacturing, water, energy power, food and beverage, and bioscience. So since we talk about the trade, China is so important to us because just like Craig mentioned earlier, China is the largest import source to the US. Similarly, it's also the largest import source for Wisconsin. We import over $5.5 billion from China in 2020. So when we do our China trade venture, go to China, we would like to meet with our Chinese companies face-to-face to discuss how can we improve our service, and also to talk about how can we promote Wisconsin to attract more investment from China. So if we look at what we import from China, you can see from this perspective, we import the most amount of the industrial machinery. So industrial machinery is defined as the equipment that are used in the manufacturing environment. And the second one is the electrical machinery, things like pumps, motors, generators, etc. So these two categories combined together represent about 46% of our total imports from China. So here we are looking at our top export destinations. Again, this is very similar to the total ranking of the export destinations from the entire US perspectives. China, again, is our number 3, very similar to same as the US export ranking. So as mentioned earlier, because China is so important, we typically only organize trade ventures or trade missions when governor comes together to the top 3 countries every year, Canada, Mexico, and China every year. And other countries, we do it by case basis. So looking at this chart, we can see China is not only Wisconsin's number 3 export market, it's also the 2nd largest growing export market. From 2010 to 2020, the growth rate overall was 16%. But if we look at the sectors perspectives, we can the medical equipment sector has been growing very rapidly. It's growing at roughly 49%. I think this is understandable as China is continuously improving its living standards. People are demanding better and better medical equipment. So for example, GE Medical is headquartered in Wisconsin, Milwaukee. And I know they are very busy in exporting products to China. So from export perspectives, again, the equipment, medical equipment is number 1, and the machinery equipment is number 2, and the total export to China is $1.6 billion. Speaking of Wisconsin, we all know Wisconsin is the dairy land of the US, of America. And the nickname for people in Wisconsin is called cheesehead. I think many of you are familiar with it. Wisconsin has been very supportive of China's agricultural development. For example, we participated in China's cheese expos in the past 10 years. And we've also been working with our sister state in Heilongjiang to promote their cheese industries and help them grow their cheese industries. So this slide is with help from US Heartland, summarize why China is important to us. I think this is also is shared with the audience. From an export perspectives, we export $1.6 billion to China. And the top 3 are medical equipment, industrial equipment, and electrical machinery. And from service perspectives, we export almost $500 million to China. Again, education, they mentioned earlier, was a key area. Export also supports the jobs in Wisconsin. So we have, about 12,000 jobs are supported because of exports. And from FDI perspectives, we have very good Chinese companies investing in Wisconsin as well. For example, Heartland, they make ingredients for blood thinner, and they are actually has a very large market share in the US. Their products has like over 50% of the market share in the US. So they are a key player in their industry. The third is the education. Wisconsin is actually one of the first states to have a Chinese students to come to Wisconsin. I think Chinese students in the University of Wisconsin Medicine, they established their Chinese Student Association as early as 1906, many, over 100 years ago. And today we have over 3,000 students in the University of Wisconsin alone. About 43% of all the international students are from China. And we also have a very close relationship with our sister state in China, Heilongjiang province. This year, we are going to celebrate our 40th anniversary of the sister state. And we have many activities planned for this year. And our sister state Heilongjiang has been very supportive to Wisconsin as well. They had also sent medical masks and some other medical gowns to Wisconsin last year to help us fight against COVID. And we also have the sister cities in China, like Milwaukee and Ningbo in China. We have a very close relationship. We often have an exchange between the mayors visits between those two cities. So this is my last slide. Again, I want to thank US Heartland for organizing this webinar for us to talk about the relationship between US Heartland states and China. Obviously, China is very important to us in all of our US Heartland states. And I hope the COVID can be under control and we can have a face-to-face meetings to discuss how we can better further strengthen the relationship between US Heartland states and China. Thank you.
Thank you, Fanfu. We learned a lot about Wisconsin during the outreach. I think one of the audience actually asked about is the export of Wisconsin ginseng, including the export. I'm sure it is. Again, thank you for the question. Keep submitting questions. We will have a Q&A session in the end. And now, Fanfu, if you can stop sharing, we will welcome Drew from North Dakota to tell us the story and the perspective of North Dakota. Drew, please.
Hello, and thank you for having me. So before we begin, I wanted to throw up this map because I'm sure most of you know more about China than North Dakota, and I'm guessing probably in high school geography class, you may have missed the question, what's the state highlighted in red? But that's okay, because like a lot of Heartland states, we take a lot of pride in being humble and in flying on the radar. But since I have the floor, I'm going to brag a little bit and show you how our often forgotten state is really an economic powerhouse. And keep in mind throughout this presentation that our motto is strength from the soil. And I think you'll see that depicted throughout this presentation. But before we leave the slide, a couple of quick geographic facts. The geographic center of North America is actually located about 100 miles north of where I'm sitting at right now. And we are actually the closest Midwestern state to China because of the curvature of the earth. So North Dakota, we have a very rural population. We are a relatively smaller state. It actually makes me jealous listening to my other panelists, but we're working on it. So we have a population of about 760,000 people, and we are the third least populated state in the union. We're the only state in the union with its own state bank. We have about, that has roughly $9 to $10 billion of assets, which we can quickly utilize for some of these larger capital projects that we'll discuss in a few minutes. Also, it's worth noting that we're also the only state with our own flour mill, which happens to be the largest in the United States. Okay, I wanted to get this out of the way because we get asked this question all the time. Yep, it's really cold in North Dakota. I took this snip yesterday from a Google search on the coldest states in the US right now. Of course, number one is Fairbanks, which is in Alaska, but we get the other three. So all three of those states there at the bottom are in North Dakota. Fun fact though, we do have really hot summers sometimes, and the highest recorded temperature swing within a 6-month period was -60 to 121 degrees, which was a 181 degree temperature swing. So real quick, we are an energy state. We like to say we're oil and soil. Here's an energy snapshot. This is not all inclusive of our energy portfolio, but some samples. North Dakota produces over 6 times the amount of energy that it consumes. We are the number two in the nation for crude oil production, and we have massive amounts of natural gas. We also hold the largest known deposit of lignite coal in the world, which we've utilized for over 100 years in producing energy. We are a leader in renewable energy. To give one example, currently we're the 5th in the nation for wind energy. It was just announced last week that we're getting another large wind farm, so it'll probably move us into 4th place. We're in the top 10 in ethanol production, and North Dakota is seeing a significant increase in biofuels. So on North Dakota's agriculture, again, we are an oil and soil, strength from the soil. 90% of North Dakota's land area is in farm and ranches. Our average farm size is about 1,500 acres. We also lead the nation in several products. Ag products, including durum, spring wheat, barley. Chances are, if you've eaten spaghetti, you've eaten a North Dakota product. We are also a significant producer of other crops as well. Corn, soy, potatoes, sugar beets. An interesting fact that I'm really proud of talking about is if more than likely at this very moment, somebody in Asia is eating a North Dakota grown soybean. There's a little over, again, going back to our population size, there's a little over 2.5 head of cattle for every person in North Dakota. And ag tech, I'd love to have a whole conference on this. We really are becoming the world's leader in agri-tech. You know, think about automation, UAS, robotics, precision agriculture, and that sort of thing. So I just kind of wanted to throw this slide in before I leave agriculture to kind of reinforce, you know, the importance of China and North Dakota trade. As you can see, North Dakota, we do produce a lot of soybeans, and by far China is our #1 customer. Here's another kind of one of the same. It just shows that importance, especially to soybeans. This is from our Soybean Council, and I thought it spoke volumes that China has over 25% of the world's crush capacity for soybeans. And before we leave ag, I really kind of wanted to throw this slide in. I know it's dated, but it kind of speaks volumes. Now, this is the U.S. Numbers for agriculture products. You can see that it's quite large. I do want to point out that this chart was made for an American audience, so you can actually add the Hong Kong to the China number, and that will show you that China is probably the number one by using these statistics. And it's also very indicative of North Dakota. Again, got to remember that we're an ag state, and it is indicative of North Dakota. So a lot of our income comes from agriculture. And China being our number one customer, it kind of shows the importance of our relationship with China. China right now is our second largest exporter. I personally believe the only reason it's number two is because we can't track the oil. I won't get into oil and gas marketing, but once it leaves the state, it's kind of hard to track that molecule. But I believe if we were able to track that molecule, you can pretty much double everything that I'm going to tell you. So our market to China grew from a little over 200 million to over 450 million. Again, I'm expecting that number's over $1 billion when you add our oil and gas numbers. So, yep, you're reading that right. Our goal is to be the first state to reach carbon neutrality by 2030. So I know what you're thinking. Golly, Drew, you just told us you were the second largest oil and gas producer in the United States, and how are you going to pull that off? Well, there's a couple things North Dakota has going for it. One is our technology. And I'll get to it in a little bit, but we have some centers and some really smart folks that are working on these issues. And again, going right back to our soil, we have the perfect geology to pull this off. We do lead the nation in several decarbonization initiatives. And right now we have about $30 billion in the queue for projects. And I'll pause right there and just remind you about the size of our state. And again, us being kind of that wanting to fly under the radar, we haven't, up until here recently, we really haven't went out and focused on attracting foreign investment or foreign interest. Really, we're probably 2 or 3 years into those projects, but we're seeing a lot of interest. And again, we got $30 billion of projects in the queue. A lot of those are focused on hydrogen and ammonia, GTL, which is gas to liquid, petchem, synfuels, and biomass. But the one I really want to focus on is the carbon capture and utilization. Let's see here. So this slide, I know it's a little bit confusing, but just remember, you got to put the left side on top of the right side there. And what you're seeing there is a snapshot of our geology. Those funny names there are actually our formations. We have what's known as pancake geology. It's like a stack of pancakes. And just for your information, the ones highlighted in blue are oil producing formations. And of course, I don't know if you can see my cursor, but over to the right, you can see the famous Bakken and the Three Forks oil production. But our geology is really the key to what makes all this, is going to make all this happen, because we have formations in there. Up in the, you can see the Fox Hills and the Hell Creek. Those are almost ideal for storage of CO2. And a little fact, our guys that are a lot smarter and wiser than me have figured out that North Dakota can actually take all of the carbon produced in the world for 5 years. In the United States, we can take all the carbon produced in the United States for 50 and our own for 500. So really what we are gearing up to do is to be what we're calling, and I wish they would come up with a better term for it, especially when I'm trying to sell it to people, but it's the carbon sink of the upper Midwest. And what we're actually looking to do is to not only capture and utilize our carbon, but also take our neighboring states' carbon as well. So that way we're actually monetizing something that would be considered a waste material. And of course, we're not only going to store it, but we're going to use it to make products out of, and as well is use it for recovering of oil and gas. I won't get into how all that works, but basically what it does, we can pump carbon down the hole and it shoves oil and gas to the wellbore, which is, real interesting, I think, and kind of neat when you think about it. We're going to be producing more oil, except we're going to still maintain that carbon neutrality.
Thank you, Drew. I think we need to try to wrap pretty soon.
Sure, and I'll speed it up. So I threw up this map of China. They're working on the exact same thing we're working on. And here's where I really see China and North Dakota partnering up. ERC, which is our Energy and Environmental Research Center. They're the guys that are thinking of all these great things. So we have guys thinking over here. We have guys over in China thinking, and I'd really like all those folks to get together and come up with something and to solve some of these big world problems that we have. So real quick, I'll just throw this up there. China is the largest consumer of energy in the world. And we're a big producer of energy, and we would certainly like to partner with China on developing some of this clean energy and working on some of these hydrogen and ammonia products and some clean coal technology. With that, thank you.
Great, thank you, Drew. I definitely think we should dedicate a separate session to promote some of the ideas you shared. I would like to now invite Mr. Pradeep Khanna, Associate Vice Chancellor for Corporate Relations and Economic Development from University of Illinois System, to share his perspective as a leader in the education sector. Please.
Good morning, and thanks, Min, for this opportunity to talk to this group about our strong higher education partnerships in China. So just very briefly, University of Illinois System consists of 3 universities. Our oldest university, and the first one is UIUC, University of Illinois at Urbana-Champaign. The second large campus is in Chicago, University of Illinois Chicago, and the third one is University of Illinois Springfield. And together, the 3 universities are the higher education powerhouse of the state of Illinois. We have close to 90,000 students, and we are leaders in research in human health, in agriculture, in engineering, any aspects of engineering, information technology. As a university, we were established in 1867, one of the original land-grant universities, and have a relationship with China that goes back more than 120 years. All this started under the leadership of President Edmund James. He was University of Illinois president from 1904 to 1920. And he had a vision of internationalizing higher education and establishing connections to bring together the best and the brightest brains together from across the world to deal with difficult problems facing our society, our world. And he struck a friendship with China's representative in Washington, D.C. at that time. And out of that friendship came recruitment of Chinese students, or the Chinese students traveling to UIUC to pursue higher education in a broad range of fields. So by 1950, 1/3 of all students coming to China to the US for higher education were coming to UIUC, University of Illinois Urbana-Champaign. And our alumni who went back to China at that time made major contributions to the economy in China, to the growth of industry and all that in the country at that time. When after the Cultural Revolution, Chinese students started traveling again, I think it was that history that continued the strong connection with UIUC. And last numbers I looked were for 2019. And UIUC was still the #1 destination for Chinese students coming to US for higher education. And this education, the participation in higher education is broad. Of course, like any foreign student, the preference of the students is to pursue engineering, followed by agriculture, followed by commerce. And our college, in our university, engineering and information technology are part of the same college. So we attract a large number of students in those disciplines. University of Illinois Chicago, which has one of the largest colleges of medicine in the country, also attracts students in the area of health and related research. And University of Illinois' culture of higher education collaboration, of course, extends well beyond our partnerships in China. It goes to India, it goes to Brazil, Mexico, Singapore, Europe, Canada. It's all over the world. Tsinghua University, which is one of the leading universities in China, has a building in the center of the campus, which is very much like Follinger Auditorium at UIUC campus. And that sort of is a reminder of the history of the strong relationship that we have had among our two countries in terms of higher education, among our university and universities in China in terms of higher education collaborations. We have agreements in terms of academic exchange, student mobility, joint research, faculty interactions with I'll just pull up the numbers, with over 50 universities in China. And our faculty do extensive amount of research jointly with Chinese faculty. At the last count, between 2018 and 2022, UIUC itself had 6,179 publications with authors from China. The largest number of publications were with Tsinghua University, Shanghai Jiaotong, Chinese Academy of Sciences. And many of them were, of course, these mega projects involving researchers from 50 to 100 countries. But there are many, many bilateral higher education collaborations and publications jointly made by faculty across our universities and their colleagues in China. We do have a number of our students traveling to China for higher education. The number is obviously a little small, but it ranges about 200 per year in terms of our students who either go to China for a semester-long study or for short-term, like inter-semester studies for a few weeks to learn about Chinese culture and experience China as such. University of Illinois at Urbana-Champaign has an international office in Shanghai. And that office supports two-way mobility of students and faculty. They assist and facilitate interactions, help establish collaboration on both sides. UIUC and the University of Illinois system are today leaders in international higher education. We are in the top 2 or 3 schools every year in the US in terms of foreign students. It's just because we have, it's a part of our culture and a part of our history. So I think I'll stop here unless Minnie have a quick question. I know I may not be able to stay for the Q&A session at the end.
Yeah, I know. Thank you for joining us. We do have a question for you since, as you mentioned, you have to leave very quickly. what are at stake for your university for higher education if U.S.-China relation are not going to be improved anytime soon? What do you think are at stake?
See, we have, as I said, we have strong higher education participation. We got partnerships all over the world, and we continue to attract students. And even now, we get a large number of students from China that come here. Our students go and study abroad there, go and experience Chinese culture there. So I think internationalization is a part of our fabric, and we have always been a very international university.
Great, great. Well, thank you for your time. If there are any specific questions for your university, we'll be sure to forward on to you. Thank you.
Sure. Thanks a lot. And I apologize for him to leave early, but I was in the middle of a meeting and did not want to miss this opportunity. Thank you.
Great. Well, thank you. Thank you very much. Again, as we learned through the research, some of the university with the most Chinese students are actually in the Heartland region. But again, next we're gonna turn to the cultural connection a little bit. And here with us is Martha from the city of San Antonio. And Martha, the floor is yours.
Thank you so much. Good morning. My name is Martha Henry, and I serve as the International Relations Manager at the City of San Antonio's Global Engagement Office. I am so pleased to join this interesting group and to discuss the City of San Antonio's important relationships with China. They date back specifically to 2007, when our former mayor, Phil Hartberger, began to focus on developing stronger ties to China. And in 2010, Mayor Julian Castro led a 70-member delegation to the Shanghai World Expo. Over the subsequent years, San Antonio has fostered and maintained a robust, active relationship with China, with an emphasis on the Jiangsu province, partially because we share interests in waterways, interestingly. Many of you may know about San Antonio's Riverwalk, a 15-mile-long waterway that wends its way through the heart of our city and connects us in very interesting ways to the canals that run through the Jiangsu province. In addition to strong partnerships with Jiangsu and Nanjing, we are sister cities with Wuxi and friendship cities with Suzhou. Since 2006, San Antonio has received over 60 delegations from China. These delegations spanned a broad range of fields of interest, including education, healthcare, culture, heritage tourism, river management, and best practices. San Antonio has also sent numerous delegations and student exchange to China over the years. One very important connection we share with many cities in China are our UNESCO designations. San Antonio has both a UNESCO World Heritage Site designation and is also part of the UNESCO Creative Cities Network. We are a creative city of gastronomy. I can't say enough how important this has been in developing our relationships. You can see on the screen.
Martha,
yes?
Can you advance slides?
Yes, I'm gonna do that. Thank you. You can see on the screen now, and there you go. A park ranger from our UNESCO Colonial Missions World Heritage Site. And we had a collaboration with the Suzhou Classical Chinese Gardens, which are also a UNESCO World Heritage Site. And I must say quickly that we have pivoted very adroitly, I think, to virtual communications and activities. And so later on, we'll show this video that we had with the park ranger and with the Suzhou Classical Gardens. That was so lovely, and we'll show that shortly. We also had a photographic exhibition of World Heritage Sites that ran at the same time. And we featured it outdoor at our missions. And it was very nice to see the contrast between their classical Chinese gardens and our 18th century Spanish colonial missions. It was a beautiful exhibition. It honored 10 years of friendship city relationship with Suzhou and San Antonio. And continuing with the arts and culture, we have also had a variety of sister cities concerts. And We have a local nonprofit called Musical Bridges Around the World. And for this particular event, they brought together 17 musicians from San Antonio and our sister and friendship cities around the world to play an original composition. We also invited the mayors and a deputy mayor to be interviewed, and one of the mayors played drums as well. So we have really pivoted to some interesting virtual programming. This was our musician from Wuxi, China, and she was highlighted in a solo and also played with the composition. It was a beautiful piece. Musical Bridges Around the World, we also work very closely with on other things. They have very strong educational programming. We invited our sister city of Wuxi to submit videos of their musicians and dancers, and that was included in this program to our youth. And just to give you an idea of the numbers, there were about 4,000 to 5,000 students reached per concert. And in the 2019-2020 season alone, there were 15,000 students. So it's really nice to have to work with partners to leverage your programming. And we do that, I think, very well. We are a small office, but we work very closely with our community partners. Another important thing that we have is this beautiful Scholars Rock. The San Antonio Museum of Art has a strong relationship with museum in Wuxi, and the city of Wuxi donated to us a rock from the Taihu Lake, or a Scholars Rock, that is now on the bank of the San Antonio River. It's beautiful. We also have had art exchanges, and there was in 2019-2020 a wonderful exhibit, Elegant Pursuits, the Arts of China's Educated Elite. And that was very well received. Another very interesting project we had was we were invited to submit designs for a garden in Yangzhou, China. And we worked with our San Antonio River Authority. And again, canals and waterways are so important to our relationship with China. And here is the design that our River Authority created and submitted and was replicated or developed in Yangzhou at their World Expo. Here are some of the details. And this is what the final entrance looked like. I think it's just stunning. They did an amazing job. And sadly, we could not visit, but we have shared our photos and the journey with our partners, and it's very, very impressive. We also work very closely with humanitarian assistance. And during the early days of the pandemic, Wuxi's Children's Hospital sent out an urgent request, as it says here, for specific equipment. And in response, our Alamo Asian American Chamber of Commerce raised $50,000 to send the materials to Wuxi. It's also important to note that Wuxi and our other friendship and sister city were very supportive of us, and they sent videos. We've had so many wonderful virtual exchanges, and they have also, sent messages of support to the students. There have been very strong student exchanges, and I'll talk a little bit about that later. And they have also sent supplies to us. We had great difficulty getting masks at the very beginning, and we received tens of thousands of masks from our Chinese partner cities. And we can't say enough how wonderful it is to have mutual agreements that can support each other. Here it is, 150,000 masks were received from China to San Antonio. And so that was just game-changing. They were very concerned about our access and were very supportive and helpful. Youth and education. We mentioned that we have had, it says here, virtual student exchange, but before the pandemic, we had a very strong student exchange between between Wuxi especially and San Antonio. And it continues to grow and to prosper. That's it for now. I don't know if you wanted to show the video now or after. I'm available for any questions or comments. Thank you.
Thank you, Martha. Well, let's play the video. It's a very short video. It's quite a treat. So Here we go. And the video is,
You're it.
yeah, the video has been queued up. And while we wait for the video, I want to remind everyone that it will be Q&A time. And then we'll also, members, please stay on for the member forum. We'll just move you into that. Yes, please go ahead with the video.
10 years ago, the city of San Antonio in the United States and Suzhou in China became friendship cities.
两座城市虽然相隔12000多公里，但在历史文化的交融方面有着不少相似之处。
These places help us to remember our history and maintain our traditions.
苏州是中国著名的历史文化名城，有人间天堂的美誉。苏州古典园林更是中国文化的瑰宝，可赏、可游、可居，是时间的艺术。 历史的艺术。1997年，拙政园等古典园林被联合国教科文组织列为世界文化遗产，每年都有许多游客从世界各地慕名而来。
Like Suzhou Gardens, San Antonio Missions is also a UNESCO World Heritage Site. Built in the 1700s, this was the site of enormous cultural change with the arrival of the Spanish. Today, people visit from all over the world to learn about the roots of San Antonio culture.
苏州和圣安东尼奥共享着友好交流城市纽带，两市都十分重视文化遗产传承和保护。我们邀请您到苏州的园林来看看。
And visit us at Mission San Jose or on our website to view beautiful images of Suzhou Gardens and to learn more about these wonderful cultural places. Happy anniversary from San Antonio to Suzhou.
Thank you, Martha. Thank you so much for sharing your city stories and the wonderful video. And at this moment, we actually, our panelists have all shared their perspective. We're opening up for Q&A. They've been questions submitted. So if, let's see, and I know for our early speakers, there's a question about trade. And Craig, I don't know if you're willing to take the question from Tyler Johnson, or if you have time to scan through, pick up any question on trade and business you'd like to address.
I'm happy to address anything. What would you like? What would you like to ask?
So Tyler Johnson asked, how do the trade numbers compare to the Phase 1 US-China agreement? China just set a trade record with Africa and seem to be shifting strategic sourcing inclusive of agricultural products. What are the consequences for China in not meeting Phase 1 commitment?
So it's a great question, and I'd like to thank Tyler. The first thing I would say is that the Chinese did not import as they had committed within the Phase 1 framework. And while the final numbers, again, are not in agriculture, for example, the Chinese side was about $16 billion short of the original commitments. Manufacturing services and would be much larger than that, and energy would probably be in between. What are the implications? Currently, the two governments are talking together to try to come out with an agreement. Both sides recognize that Phase 1 was a commitment to purchase more increased American products, increase US exports into China. That commitment was not met, partially due to the market, partially due to COVID, partially due to lower commodity prices in 2019 and 2020. And so the decision has not yet been made as to whether or not to carry on the agreement or to start over again. I think additional tariffs are very unlikely, but not impossible. So the two governments are discussing this, and I'm afraid that the trade community is left without any certainty at all on tariffs or on the future relationship. And I regret that level of uncertainty for all market players. Thank you.
Great, thanks, Craig, for the excellent answer. Next question is actually, I think everyone on the panel, feel free to raise your hand and jump in. It's really about the public impression, perception, right? We've read about Pew Research, the declining perception of China, actually even on the China side, declining perception of US, and there's a critical tone in the media that's not really helping much. From your local perspective, what do you think could really help to get people to be more collaborative in discussions? And then what other things, I'm sorry, we don't live in bubble, and what other challenges you see and how we can overcome it? And anyone, feel free to unmute and jump in, the panelists, anyone? About the media perceptions and what we can do. Martha, you want to take a shot at it?
I always think, and what we say in our office is culture holds the glue together. You know, culture is the glue that holds us together. And I also think that food is very important. And I heard that, I think it was you, Denise, you're nodding your head. I think food is so important, and we really should focus on networks that connect us. And I'm thinking again, I keep saying this, the UNESCO networks, there are also environmental networks that are important for us to collaborate with. So think of the positives, think of the rich culture, look at their amazing history and art, and eat their food and have them eat our food and exchanges. So I'm just gonna put that out there. And Denise, what do you say?
Well, I was going to say food, fun, and fellowship. Food, fun, and fellowship. Those are the things that make the biggest difference in any situation. We begin to change our perceptions of people we have relationships with. We have a better understanding. We seek mutual understanding. We do business with people that we call our friends. So when you look at it from that perspective, the best way to really begin to engage is food, fun, and fellowship. And I will always say that that is the key to making everything work, because the moment you put something in your mouth that you've never had before and someone tells you what it is and you're experiencing it for the first time, everything lights up. I mean, your brain lights up, your body's lighting up, all of these things are happening. And that's when the moment is like, okay, wait a minute, that wasn't so bad. Let me try this. And then you're laughing, you're talking, and, you know, it just, that really makes all the difference. So I would recommend, Craig, that when everybody's looking at policy, that they do it over food, fun, and fellowship, and we'd probably be much better.
Yeah, I think Denise hit on the missing ingredients, right, Craig? We haven't been able to join food together, having fun together, and fellowship together, only through Zoom. Of course, it's going to go downhill, right?
I understand that when Xi Jinping and Joe Biden get together, they talk about the meals that they had when they traveled together, proving Denise and Martha's point.
Great.
And I would just add, you know, I think that this is a great event, and I think we need more events like this. We just need to put more media press release and events like this out there. I think all the, you know, Heartland states, through your organization, we can more, you know, unite together and do more things together to promote the bilateral relationship and the subnational relationship. Thank you.
Well, thank you. We can use all the support. I'm going to turn to Drew. I also want to make sure Drew gets some tips from folks in Ohio for getting some of the big partnership going on with China. But Drew, please.
Absolutely. You know, in coming from a very rural state, I think there's a big disconnect. I have this conversation almost daily where the farmer, you know, watching the soybean, where does that soybean go? Well, I sell it to an elevator, and that's where the story stops for him. So I think we need have a better effort on understanding the whole supply chain of, yes, your soybean actually ends up in China. They're your number one customer. And I think coming from a rural perspective, that's an important fact that get the message out that, China is your number one customer.
Well, Drew, I'll actually tell everyone we have the 2022 US-China Ag Roundtable scheduled for the National Agriculture Week in March. And Drew, we definitely talk about ag tech, and also the US Soybean Export Council is telling the China-US soybean story, how a crop that was originated from China became a US success story, exporting back to China and helping China too. Again, I see Lulu, actually our friend from Tennessee China Network, joined us. And Lulu, do you have anything to weigh in response to what people shared, or a question about media perception or media's polarized perception? Anything to weigh in, Lulu?
Well, thank you, Ming. Good morning, everyone from Tennessee. I'm Lulu Lim Copeland, Executive Director of Tennessee China Network. We're a nonprofit founded in 2014 to connect people and organizations in Tennessee with China-related resources. We have appreciate our friendship and partnership with US Heartland, and are planning some additional events. And that was a great comment from Martha and Denise, because are we okay in saying what we might be doing? Okay, so with the fun fellowship comment, I almost typed in what we are planning on a series that we are calling Eat, Drink, and Prosper Together. So you will see some food and some drinking. Well, I'm not sure seeing the drinking part, but anyway, we're going to promote the friendship aspect of China relationship. And my comment is China matters for a lot of us, because the growth and prosperity is important in economic development. I have 20 some years of economic development, recruiting businesses, from international businesses to Tennessee. So, and then I like echoing what Governor Holden said earlier. My education background is engineering. Therefore, I believe in bridge building. And, all we're doing is building foundations for long-term prosperity. So thank you.
Great. Thank you, Lulu. We do have more questions, but anyone else want to weigh in about public perception or media before we move on to another question?
In say words, I think I concur that the bridge building is the key to building relationship. I think at the state level, at the local level, I think we can do a lot to help improve the relationship. For example, we are going to be celebrating our 40th anniversary with our sister state, Heilongjiang in China. In addition to improving relationship in trade, investments, education, agriculture, we are also planning some culture activities. For example, we are planning to have a chess competition between our kids in Wisconsin and the kids in Heilongjiang, and we may also doing a music playing between to sharing people in Wisconsin can play some famous song or Chinese song, and vice versa. Chinese musician can play famous song, US songs, and maybe even some concerts, online concerts between the two states.
Great. Well, thank you. There's another question for Craig. Tie into Tyler's question. What can organizations like US Heartland, all the Heartland states do to improve US-China relations on the federal level? We're not, again, we are people-to-people exchange, but we do want to see a better US-China relation. What type of actions, in your opinion, will be influential and helpful?
Well, the US-China Business Council is currently following some 320 pieces of draft legislation that concern China. And many of these pieces of legislation are going to have an impact on trade and investment going both ways. And if the members of Congress are told as to what are the interests of the state or of their district, then that would be extremely useful. What we're finding is that a number of these pieces of legislation are carrying and being implemented in a somewhat surge of nationalism and anti-China sentiment. What we would encourage is a rational look at the economic implications of bad relations on anywhere, and for all American citizens to have their voices heard as to what they feel that their interests are. I think Drew is 100% correct. About a third of every soybean produced in the United States goes to China. And we've seen tremendous increases in US exports. We must not take that for granted. If the tariff exclusions were to go away, then Brazilian exporters would happily take our place. And I hope that that's not the case. But the politics here are very difficult, and through our democratic processes, let's be involved and influence our congressional representation as we see fit. Thank you.
Great, thank you. We are actually at the top of our time. We had original plan. At this time, the panelists feel free to stay on if you have time. Our members will stay on, but I would like to bring up a couple of slides to tell people where to get the report. And so if we can bring up the slide. And first of all, today we have released this Why China Matters to the Heartland and report. And for those of you who register, you will very quickly receive an email with a link to download this PDF. Again, the website should be live, the link's right here, where you can see state by state the data that you see in this state fact sheets. I also want to mention that the panelists who spoke here all contributed to our learning. And we learned so much, again, much more than just the data, the summary, and there's again, genuine connection, deep friendship, and tangible benefit that took decades to develop. And we also want to take this time to mention that despite the challenges, we're seeing that Chinese students are still by far the largest group of international coming to the United States. Me, I think Fanfu, many were once the students and became naturalized citizens. And being Chinese American at this juncture is actually very precarious as the relations does not improve. We hear about anti-Asian hate. We hear about people being called, go back to your home. This is very personal. This is very real. So have deep implications at many levels. Finally, I want to thank Ford Foundation, Henry Luce Foundation, who have generously supported our organization, our work. Without their support, we wouldn't be able to do this. Now, I want to thank all the panelists and all the attendees. I know everyone's very busy these days for your time. And this now concludes our public segment of the program.